We're at Lenaro Connect in Redwood City, California, and I'm with Jesse Barker. Jesse, you are the tech lead for the graphics working group for Lenaro. However, you're with ARM as well. Can you kind of explain that just a little bit?
Sure, it's actually a common point of confusion even within ARM, where there are a number of us actually in the same situation. So the way that Lenaro works in general is that each member that's part of Lenaro contributes a certain amount of headcount. And so I technically work for ARM, as you point out, but ARM uses the term secondment to Lenaro, which basically means, it's a fancy word for I'm on assignment. So 100% of my duties and my dailies and things like that, it's all about Lenaro. But at the end of the day, I'm employed by ARM, and the same, like I said, is true for actually a number of the people within Lenaro for their various member companies as well.
It's pretty exciting to see that and see all these member companies coming together here at Connect, and so it's always good to see the interaction and then see the Lenaro product, whatever that product is the teams are working on. In your case, the graphics and other exciting things that we're going to talk about here in just one second. It's just really good to see it all, just coming together, coming to fruition, and everybody getting together and going, hey, I like what you did on that project, or thanks for doing that. And speaking of thanks, you wrote a couple articles not too long ago, one of which is let's see if I get this right, DRA Buff.
DMA Buff, that's
DMA
right.
Buff,
That's right.
sorry.
That's okay.
Too many letters in here. So DMA Buff, and you also wrote one on OpenGPL drivers, which got a lot of traffic, a lot of retweeting, a lot of rebroadcasting. Can you first talk about the OpenGPL drivers?
Sure. So the issue there with GPU drivers is that ultimately most vendors produce a driver stack for their graphics processor, but they kind of keep it to themselves. And when that, if it ever does, ends up in the open source community, it's as the term we usually use is binary blob, and it's kind of meant as a little bit of a jab, I suppose, at the vendors for kind of keeping that bit to themselves. And those binary blobs are sort of problematic to work with, and that's one of the reasons that we're trying to change the mindset. Really, I mean, that's the only way we can sort of think to approach the problem is to make a convincing enough argument that the benefit to the vendor, even from the community having access to their driver source, is significant enough that it's worth them doing, and it's really not any sort of a threat, and there's no nefarious purposes going on here or anything like that. It's really just about the community getting together to make things better and stronger and faster, and in graphics, that's all important. And that was one of the points that I was sort of making in the article, is that graphics is one of the places where you will often accept performance over total correctness, because just faster is better.
So I know that a lot of online press sources did pick up the GPU driver story, and it did get that traction, and you explained it very well, and to where people said, now I get it, now I understand. And so thanks for writing that for educational purposes of the community as a whole. It was a good customer service type, or community service type post on your part for that. So.
It was my pleasure. It was actually reasonably effortless to write, in a sense, because it was based on a real situation. I was approached by an engineering manager. It was actually at ARM. I probably shouldn't say, but anyway, it was actually at ARM, and I was posed with several questions that I thought were very, very insightful and were the right things to ask to really understand the core of the problem. And so I gave the answer a lot of thought as well, and with kind permission was able to kind of reproduce that discourse in the blog article, and that really formed the core of that, and made it really easy to just kind of put the rest of the ideas around that. And so that was, but anyway, it was that one was nice to do.
So in regards to DMA Buff, why was that so important? Why did that get a lot of traction?
Well, one of the things about Lenaro and the way that everything has come together between all of the members is really, it's about solving common problems that we all have, but problems that also have the attribute that Lenaro is in a unique position to work on those problems. There are things that Lenaro is just uniquely poised to handle. And one of the things that's out there is that copying large amounts of memory on an SoC is very, very expensive. It's never free on any system, but on something like the PC that you might have on your desk, for example, it's a lot lower cost in the overall behavior of the system. In an SoC, it's very, very expensive, and so one of the problems that we've been trying to solve is the ability to get data through various components of the system, from device to device to device, and as well as the CPU, without copying that memory around. And there's no mechanism in the Linux kernel to do that. And we were all sort of gobsmacked, really, when we kind of looked and said, well, how are we going to do this? And there was just no real way to do that. And so we got together in Budapest last year and really had, and there were more meetings than that, involving a lot of vendors, both Linaro members and non-Linaro members, because as I say, this is a really universal problem. And so it became significant because it represents a new piece of plumbing that solves a problem that a lot of people have had for a very long time. And vendors were struggling to solve the problem, and they all solved it in a slightly different way, and these things are all incompatible with each other. And so it's really nice to see this all come to fruition. And the really cool thing about it, I suppose, is it's one of the first novel pieces, new technology pieces that's gone upstream into the kernel, so it'll be there in 3.3. And it's also the case that the guy in my group who's done that work has also been named as maintainer of that piece as well, ongoing, which is something else that Linaro has really tried very hard to do, which is have representation in the community like that. So it's a great feeling all the way around, and I'm real proud of the team.
And I think all the teams at Linaro, the one thing I found interesting is that the code is pushed upstream.
Absolutely.
And not held in-house before the release. It goes upstream prior to the release, and really it's not held close hold. It is shared in that spirit of community. So
that's right. That's sort of mission one for Linaro is to get everything upstream as quickly as possible. And so that's just something that we've really worked hard for.
So for the community and for other members, partners and members that may be watching this video, for those who want to get involved with your team as we build this community and go forward, what specific channels do we have to get people involved in the graphics working group, or who can contribute to that, or who would you like to see more? Where would you like to see more contributors come from?
Well, as far as who can, anyone really. It just takes an interest, and certainly there's our group's main page is on the Linaro Wiki, and there's all kinds of contact information about how you can get involved. There's an IRC channel. Actually, there's more than one because we have a special one just for the memory management topics. The graphics group generally hangs out in the general Linaro channel. Our weekly group meeting is open to anybody who wants to join it. The dial-in information is also on that page, and and of course the Meet the Team page on the Linaro Wiki. There's a whole section on the graphics working group, and you can get in touch with any of us. All of our email addresses and IRC nicks are there. As far as who I'd like to see get involved, vendor people who are, people that work for GPU companies that are not Linaro members necessarily, even ones who are for that matter, but especially ones who aren't, in order to really just make sure that the solutions to these problems that we're coming up with really are as universal as possible.
Well, Jesse, thank you so much for stopping by and speaking to me a little bit more about what your team does, what you do, what you've expressed in the past. And I look forward to seeing where we are. I see where we are today, and I look forward to seeing where we are in 3 months from now when we go to Hong Kong and see what we've done in the last quarter. So thank you so much, and look forward to it.
You're welcome, and I'm looking very forward to it as well.